Ill-Equipped History, where two best friends are really doing their best today to get through this.
The entire time your voice sounded like it was on the urge of laughter.
Because it is. Oh, sorry. Guys, my kids hit me with some really funny like one-liners this afternoon, and I was regaling them to Morgan. You might find them on the blooper episode next month, so, Anyway, I'm Emileigh, and this is Morgan.
Hello, Emileigh.
Hello. How are you?
I'm okay.
Yeah.
Going camping tomorrow for the long weekend for Easter weekend. So I'm excited, but I'm super underprepared. There's a lot of things I still need to get done.
Yeah.
So we'll see if I can fit that into my schedule before we leave. But other than that, I'm excited.
Yeah. I have so much to do in so little time. But nothing can be worse than what I did on Monday. I fucked around and found out on accident.
No.
So guys, the new oven has air fryer capabilities, and it came with like an air fryer basket. And I grabbed that air fryer basket and put it on the counter because I was making egg rolls. And then I decided the egg rolls needed to go in for another few minutes. So guess what my dumbass did? Just straight grabbed it.
Oh, no.
I burned two lines into my thumbs. Into both thumbs. And then I had to go to Walmart with burnt, like I have a, not to brag, I have a pretty high pain tolerance.
Right.
Just from shit. I thought I was going to throw up. It hurt so bad.
Oh, no. Did you get blisters on your thumbs?
Somehow I didn't, and I think it's because I have an aloe plant, and I just immediately, like, slathered it, and then I had to eat Chinese food with no thumbs. And then I had to go to Walmart with no thumbs, with children.
Oh, no.
And I got down to my Jeep, and do you know how hard it is to open a 2001 Jeep Cherokee door without thumbs? You gotta hit
because you gotta press it in.
You gotta press it in. So I was holding it with one, and I was like, I don't have the grip strength in my other fingers to hit the door.
Oh. Oh.
But I will say, I got there was, I don't know where we got this from, but it was just straight up lidocaine wound cream. And I just put it on there. And it numbed my thumbs, and it worked really well.
Numb the thumbs.
Numb the thumbs. So, guys, don't do that.
Oh,
use your
I'm
hot
so sorry
pads.
about your
It's okay.
your hands. Oh, that's so painful.
And the kids were just like the whole time, like nothing happened. Like, Mom, can you open this? Mom, can you grab this? And I'm like, my thumbs. No.
I can't remember if it was either my mom or my stepdad. I think it was my mom when this is a long time ago, but she had an oven mitt and she used the hand with the oven mitt to open the oven and reached in with her bare hand to grab the pan and smashed everything with her shit. Like throwing everything down movement.
My mom did that too. She opened it up and just grabbed a cast iron out of the oven with her hand and then dropped it on their new tile in the kitchen, and it stayed broken until we moved out.
Oh, no. Oh, man.
Maybe that just means I leveled up in mom. Just grab hot pan out of oven.
It's a rite of passage. Maybe that's... I am not a mom, so... And I'm very much a checker, like, because I'm super anxious, and I always have to check things multiple times to make sure that I'm okay. And so if I'm using the oven or the toaster oven or whatever, I will say out loud, I'm reaching with my oven mitted hand to the oven. And I am using my oven mitted hand to grab the thing in the oven. So it's like out loud and I'm checking so I don't burn the shit out of my hand.
I am flying by the seat of my fucking pants over here. I am just winging life. You were so prepared and so thoughtful in your actions. And I am over here like a fucking crack monkey.
You're a crack monkey and I'm a prisoner of my own making. And it is also a miserable experience.
I literally have half painted walls and I trimmed my bushes the other day. I have no rhyme or reason to anything in my life right now. It's fine.
We're doing the best we can.
Yeah. Also, you know how I did all the hand sanding on the ceiling and smoothed everything out and worked really hard on that? Well, Nick came home the other day and was like, hey, this is after I got the living room done, and it said if I ever work on another ceiling again, someone will die. Nick comes home with a sander that's about 1.5 feet in diameter, made to sand ceilings without having to get on a ladder, and it sucks the dust up. And I'm like, where?
Put his head in it?
What's this? His uncle let him borrow it. I guess he had mentioned to his uncle, who he works with now, that I was doing that, and his uncle was like, well, I have the sander, you can borrow it. So he borrowed it, but
you finished the ceiling.
I'm done. Nick said, oh, she's gonna kill me, but I'm gonna take it anyway. I was like, well, all you've done is actually given me hope to maybe finish the bathroom in the kids' rooms, because I had given it up. I was like, we're not doing that. That's the next owner's problem, but maybe. We'll see. We'll see. Fingers crossed. My heart sank when I looked at it and realized it was 4 times the size of the sander that I had sanded the entire living room, kitchen, my bedroom, and bathroom with. I was like, oh my God.
Just pit drop.
Yes. It's like, I hate this. And I wouldn't have had to get on a ladder. It's on a pole. A pole.
Devastation.
My shit was rocked that day. I was just...
Oh, no.
Anyway. Should we do this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. A middle school history teacher is reading Henry Wadsworth Longfellow's poem, Paul Revere's Ride, to her class in preparation for the lesson about the Revolutionary War. Now, students, please follow along with the poem, and we will discuss it after we have read it. Listen, my children, and you shall hear of the midnight ride of Paul Revere.
I thought there were other riders.
Please hold your questions until the end during discussions. Moving on. On the 18th of April in 75, hardly a man is now alive who remembers that famous day and year.
75? Does that mean 1975? I thought the United States was 25 years old. Yeah, and my dad was born in 75 and doesn't dress like that. That's so lame.
What? That's not how that... 25 years old? No, it means 1775. This poem was written in the 1800s. And again, please hold your questions. And what happened to raising our hands? Moving on. He said to his friend, if the British march by land or sea from the town tonight, hang a lantern aloft in the belfry arch of the North Church Tower as a signal light. 1 if by land, and 2 if by sea, and I on the opposite shore will be.
I thought they were all British. Why would he say the British are coming? I really hope he had good eyesight if he was going to look across the whole river. That's like 5 miles wide.
Please, everyone, hold your questions, and I will tell you how this poem isn't actually historically accurate.
Oh, why didn't you say this poem was Cap? Hell yeah, Mrs. B. Hit us with those facts. This Longfellow guy seems delulu AF.
Oh, God, I don't get paid enough for this. Morgan, did that take you to your work day? Back to-
A little bit. the why didn't you say this poem was Cap took me right to middle school.
Yeah.
It's a very, very Gen Alpha thing to say.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I was at Dollywood this past weekend, and what I could only assume is a 12-year-old while we were in line for the Tennessee tornado, someone had wrote "What the Sigma" like as little graffiti, and I was like, I'm old. This is I don't know what this
We have gotten to the point where younger people's language is foreign to us.
I'm literally Googling, like, what does Sigma mean? Like, it's bad.
I remember when, like, Bet first became a thing.
Oh, yeah.
I was in my late 20s, and I worked with a bunch of, like, early 20-year-olds and teenagers, and they were like, Bet. And I was like, what does that mean? Or there's another one I've seen. It's like a based. Like if someone's based. I still can't tell you what that is. I asked people, and I got opposite answers.
Oh, man. Is it like aloha that means hello and goodbye? It's just like you have to use context clues.
I guess. Like, I think it means, like, this person has, like, good factual basis for their opinion, and also this person is a loser, is kind of how it was explained to me on the internet, and it didn't answer anything for me.
I hate this.
It took me a long time to figure out what cap meant.
I had to Google it.
It means lie, right?
Googled it. Yeah. Cap is a lie. No cap is the truth. And
this is literally 1984.
Yeah. I know how our parents felt.
Mm-hmm. With our lulls and our,
yeah.
What's other slang that we had?
Oh, jeez. Eyebrows on fleek. That was in the early 2000s, or the...
Like 2010s.
2010s, yeah.
Yeah. Or Yas Queen, or...
Yeah. I can't even think of any now. We probably just say them and date ourselves so bad.
Oh, yeah.
Apparently the laughing emoji is, like, out. Like, you have to have at least the sideways one. And I will not be letting go of the regular cry face.
I actually
laughing.
refuse to use the sideways one.
No. I'm like, why are you over here? Come back. Okay, we have to talk about Paul Revere now.
Anyway.
Guys, listen. It's the 250th anniversary of Paul Revere's, not to the day. Upon recording, we're like 2 days away from like the actual anniversary, but it's the anniversary month. So, I felt like it was very punctual, very timely to cover this. And, it started out more as like, oh, we're going to talk about the Midnight Ride and Paul Revere. And it kind of evolved into a little bit more than that. We're going to talk about 4 different people today.
Okay.
And their roles within the Midnight Ride. I would like to say thank you to the Athens Historical Society for reminding me that it is 250 years this month, and
Cool.
they did a little presentation on it, and they did a good job, so I'm taking inspiration from them and sharing it with our listeners. And yeah, like kind of like our skit suggests, the poem about Paul Revere's ride is just kind of a crock of shit for a good amount of it. Like, there's so much that's not correct. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure he wrote it to be all like flowery, and I think it was like 1861 that it came out.
I mean, it was Longfellow. He was kind of flowery in his writing.
Yeah. The dude's name is Wadsworth Longfellow. Like, that's a very flowery name. But we're talking about a poem that came out nearly 100 years after the actual events. So I guess you could kind of say it's kind of, yeah, there would be inaccuracies. And I didn't know this, but up until this poem came out, the Midnight Ride was pretty much forgotten about.
Oh, really?
Like, it wasn't like a thing that was discussed or talked about a whole lot. It was really this poem that pushed it into like our like mind's eye.
Neat.
Like, everybody knows what the Midnight Ride is.
Yeah.
But yeah, apparently Paul Revere didn't even have it in like his obituary.
Oh, really?
He did that. It was just like, yeah. Yeah. So, today we're going to get into a little bit about how and why the Revolutionary War started. And then we'll get into the people and what happened in things of that nature. I don't want to get too far into the Revolutionary War itself because we don't have 4 hours to be here.
Yeah, we've touched a little bit about certain parts of the Revolutionary War, but yeah.
Right. So let's establish a baseline. Where are the colonies at this point? And remember, we're only like east of the Mississippi at this point. The United States is so tiny. So please remember that.
Yes.
One of its main ports is Boston. So a lot of what we're talking about today is taking place in the Boston area. And the Kingdom of Great Britain at the time was absolutely vast, sprawling, huge, and kind of ruled from afar, and very kind of laissez-faire, hands-off mentality when it came to the colonies, because it's really hard to kind of dictate what you're doing over there from all the way over here.
Yeah.
So the colonies were pretty much largely allowed to manage their own kind of affairs. And under this like unofficial policy of the Massachusetts Charter of 1691, so they kind of adopted like a figurehead of some form. The royal authorities really didn't interfere that much with daily governing, small things like that. Now, there were acts passed that were expected to be, passed down to the colonies. But even a lot of those up until this point really were not that strictly enforced. Some were just ignored completely. They just kind of were over there doing their own thing, living their lives. I'm sure there was some tensions between the crown and the colonies, but it really wasn't at this point picking up speed or doing anything. They're just over here vibing, living their life. So a tiny little thing called the French and Indian War, or the 7 Years' War, happened. And at the end of that, in 1763, the Treaty of Paris ended that war. And that means France surrendered all of its North American possessions east of the Mississippi to Britain. So now Great Britain has control of more land in the colony North America area. And the cost of this war and maintaining the army led the British to impose new taxes on the colonists. That pissed them the fuck off.
Yes.
And very much so.
I feel like this has been a recurring theme over the past couple episodes where you increase taxes, it pisses people the fuck off.
Literally, the title for this section is Britain is a Meanie.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so on March 22nd of 1765, they enacted the Stamp Act. So this imposed a tax on legal documents, newspapers, playing cards, pretty much any paper goods. They had to put a little stamp to say they paid the tax. So that's why it's called Stamp Act. It's not an act on stamps per se. So this was the first direct tax on the American colonists that was so resisted by the colonists. And they actually had a successful campaign and had the act repealed. And this was the first time this had happened. And it really gave them the muster, the confidence to avoid future taxes. They're like, well, we got them to get rid of this one. Why can't we have them get rid of this one? Well, do you think good old Great Britain is done taxing us? I'm saying us because I'm American. No!
No!
No! So in 1767, the Townshend Act was put into effect. And this imposed direct revenue duties. So these are literally duties not made to regulate trade or, how supply and demand, sometimes you make something more expensive, so less gets, it's not for regulating.
It's like a standard tax, essentially.
Exactly. It was solely to put money into Great Britain's pockets.
Yeah.
The treasury was getting a little low, and they were like, I'm going to need that to be filled up.
And the people were thrilled about that.
Oh, they were like, sure, take my money. Fuck off. So these duties fell on things like lead, glass, paper, paint, and tea. And this was only the second time in history that the colonies had been taxed solely for the purpose of raising revenue. So they were like, we hate this. This isn't going to anything except your pockets. Because everyone was mad, again, they started fighting back. Verbally and physically. There were some physical altercations. Yeah. And literally just some deliberate evasion of these duties. I don't know how they were getting around it, but somehow they were getting around it. And they did non-importation agreements among merchants. So they would kind of work around the, imports to try to get around them. And they were just hostile to the British enforcement agents that were stationed in the area. And again, a lot of this is happening in Boston because Boston, I believe at the time, was their biggest port.
I think so too. Besides, like, maybe
Charleston?
Maybe Charleston.
Yeah.
And maybe, like...
Florida?
No, I don't think Florida was a state yet. I was going to say maybe, like, New York, like Long Island or New York City or something.
Right.
But I think Boston was probably the biggest one.
I think Boston was.
Yeah.
So, a couple of years later, in October of 1768, some British troops landed in Boston to enforce the Townshend duties. And really to kind of put their thumb down on these radicals. And more troops definitely didn't sit well with locals. And this led to street fights, standoffs, protests, and on one occasion, in March of 1770, so they'd been here for 2 years at this point, almost 2 years, there were some soldiers standing outside some kind of goods store that would, enforce these taxes. And the locals are just giving them hell. Mm-hmm. I mean, pretty much like maybe throwing rocks at them.
I think they were.
For sure throwing...
Like, insults. I think they were throwing rocks. There was a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah. So in this confusion, no one knows exactly how this started. But somebody on the redcoats, so the British side, fired the first shot. So we don't know if a commander was like, hold your fire, all they heard was fire. If they just got mad enough at what the crowd was saying to them and they lost their temper, or if it was accidental. Who knows? We don't know, but we do know that the redcoats fired first. And then when one fires, typically everybody else starts firing.
Yeah.
And this ended up being called the Boston Massacre. At least one says, okay, I'm getting clashing sources. I have a ton of sources down here, guys. I believe, like I've heard before, one person died and a few other were injured. But then I heard one source that said 5 people died. So somewhere between 1 and 5 people died.
I know definitely like Crispus Attucks was killed. I think he may have been the only one that died on site, and I think maybe 1 or 2 or a few other people may have died later from the injuries from being shot.
Yes. Okay, so I did look it up, and I'm just going to read the quick AI overview. So if this is wrong, blame AI. It says Crispus Attucks, Samuel Gray, and James Caldwell, Samuel Maverick, and Patrick Carr. Attucks, Gray, and Caldwell died that night. Maverick died the next morning, and Patrick Carr died 2 weeks later. So I believe Attucks was the only one I think that died on site. The others died later on various days.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So the radicals would call this the Boston Massacre, where the British would call this the incident on King Street. Why'd you make it sound like you spilled a cup of tea on King Street? Like,
well, because they're
your carriages ran together. Like, what?
They're minimizing to make it seem like it wasn't as bad as it was, where you open fire on civilians.
Yeah. But the massacre is the reason that they did lift the duties on everything except tea.
Because tea was super important.
Oh, yeah. So in spring of 1772, so 2 years after the massacre, there is just mass organizing across the colonies. Obviously, hush hush, secret. The committees of correspondence, which also sounds so official for like a radical movement. Like we had like the Sons of Liberty. Yeah, the Sons of Liberty, the committees of correspondence, and we'll see a couple other names, and I'm like, okay. Makes me want to put on like a suit and tie and like I'm part of the committee of correspondence.
Yeah.
But they were being established throughout the colonies, and they coordinated kind of the American response to these British colonial policies. And they would have certain, so like they had a Boston chapter, New York chapter, Charleston chapter, so kind of everywhere. And this really, they started becoming a united front around this time. They were like, we've had enough. Fuck the Townsend Act. They're killing our people in the streets. Let's organize. So then the Tea Act. So the East India Company, little backstory, was one of England's oldest and most successful trading companies that they had. And around this time, the company was kind of going out of business because they couldn't keep up with smuggled tea coming into the colonies, because the smuggled tea was being sold for way cheaper than the British tea from the East India Company.
I feel like we've talked about this before. Was it in our tea episode or in like one of our pirate episodes
I think, okay, we've definitely talked about the East India Company when it came to the beer episode. I think we touched on it on the tea episode. Maybe the pirate episode? It keeps coming back to the East India Company.
Yeah.
Like, everything revolves around the freaking Protestant Reformation and the East India Company. I have no idea why. So, this Tea Act was passed in May of 1773, and it gave a huge discount to the East India Company so they could sell the tea to the colonies for cheaper than the smugglers could sell it for. But then also because they were buying, government regulated tea, they now had to pay the tea tax as well. Mm-hmm. From the Townsend Act. So it kind of like doubled up, which, yes, it was still cheaper than paying the smugglers, but a lot of people were like, you're only doing this to get the money from us because you weren't getting money from the tea before because we were buying it from smugglers.
Right.
The fuck?
And the colonists didn't want to support the tea tax at all.
Exactly. We were like, we're tired of paying you taxes. We don't want to. We are having taxation without representation.
Right.
We don't actually, I think a lot of sources said that like they weren't necessarily mad about being under the crown. They were mad about not having a voice in their own home.
Right. And like there wasn't someone from the colonies that was on the British Parliament representing the interests of the colonies for like regulations and taxes and stuff.
Exactly. They were just over there making decisions for an area that they didn't know anything about.
Yeah.
And that would have pissed me off too. So a lot of these colonies were like, you know what? We're just gonna stick it to the man. So ships carrying the East India Company's tea would arrive in Philadelphia and New York but then have to turn around and go back to England with this tea because of the angry mobs that were just there.
And people wouldn't take the tea off the ships either. So they were just like stuck in harbor.
Yeah. Yeah. So in Massachusetts, the royal governor, so this was the governor appointed by the British, wouldn't even let the ship carrying the tea, the East India tea, leave the harbor without paying the duty on the tea. So even though, like, it didn't get unloaded, they were like, you still have to pay. Tea was here. Which is fucked.
Yeah.
So on the evening of December the 16th of 1773, protesters, some disguised as Native Americans, which was a weird choice, but okie dokie artichoke, they boarded 3 ships in the Boston Harbor and threw 342 chests of East Indian Company tea into the water. We have mentioned this before because now I remember all the fish that were hopped up on the tea.
I think it was when I talked about George Washington crossing the Delaware, because I think I talked about the start of the Revolutionary War in that episode for context.
Well, I'm glad we're bringing it up again because I forgot all of this.
Nice refresher for you, because that was over a year ago. So
yeah. See, we got to bring it up sometimes because it's like Dory up here. So this was 342 chests of tea. Doesn't sound like a lot. Y'all, it was worth over $1 million in today's money.
Major
so
loss.
Much freaking tea.
Can you imagine $1 million worth of tea?
That's a lot.
It's a lot of tea. Because, like, you can get a box for, like, a couple dollars.
Yeah. And you get, like, at least 12 bags.
Yeah.
Hold on. Let's just say we get 24 bags for $12. Not $12, $5. 5 divided by 24, Emily. About 20 cents a bag. So $1 million. 200,000 bags of tea. Is that right?
I don't know.
Doesn't seem right.
I don't know.
It's divided by 0.2. 5 million bags of tea. Guys, we're going to move on.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
We're not, this is not a math podcast.
No.
We do a lot of math. We're not a math podcast.
No. So, I don't think I knew this, but the Boston Tea Party actually inspired other ports. So, Edenton, really? North Carolina, and Yorktown, Virginia all had kind of similar instances as well.
Oh, okay.
And this, of course, pissed off England, because one thing you don't do is you don't fuck with their tea.
Yeah.
And instead of repealing the Tea Act, they decided to punish Boston and the people of Massachusetts. Mm-hmm. So on March the 4th, between March and June of 1774, they put forth what called the Coercive Acts, also known as the Intolerable Acts.
Yes.
In America. And pretty much Great Britain closed the port of Boston and required British troops to be housed in taverns and vacant buildings. Anywhere they wanted to, they could just bust down your door and be like, I live here for now. Mm-hmm. Feed me. Wash my clothes. Fuck y'all. Yeah. So the surrounding colonies really felt for Massachusetts during this because it was really just located in Massachusetts. And we're at June of 1774, March to June, we're at the peak of tensions.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to take a break from that, and we're going to talk about the 4 people we're going to focus on today.
Okay.
So the first being Dr. Joseph Warren. And Joseph Warren was born in Roxbury, Massachusetts on June the 11th of 1741. He was the eldest of 4 sons of Joseph Warren, who was a farmer. His dad died falling out of an apple tree, which I think is a very interesting way to go. It's so sad.
It's so sad.
Yeah, I know. I was like, I really wasn't expecting that. Okay.
Yeah.
And he attended Harvard, briefly taught at a Latin school, and then studied to be a physician. And that was his mother's father's occupation.
Okay.
He married Elizabeth Houghton. I bet she was a hoot. On September 6th of 1764, they would go on to have 4 children. Unfortunately, in 73, I think it said 73, Elizabeth died.
Oh, that's so sad.
I know. So, Dr. Warren began his participation with the radicals around 1767. So, he had been in it by the time we stopped our story a second ago. He'd been in it for a little bit. About 7 years, 8 years. With the passage of the Townshend Act, he really was just like, screw these people. And he actually wrote a series of articles in the Boston Gazette under the pseudonym A True Patriot. And these articles pissed off the royal governor and attempted to charge Warren and the publishers of the newspaper with libel. But the grand jury was like, no. He's allowed to say that.
He can share his opinion.
Yeah.
That's not libel to share your opinion.
Yeah. Have you tried not being a dick? I don't. Anyway, so he was friends with good old Sam Adams and also had family ties with James Otis, who was his brother-in-law, and some kind of Masonic connection with Paul Revere. So he kind of knew people.
Okay.
He was in the loop. And also other rebels around. Obviously part of the, what was it? The Committee of Communications or something like that. Correspondence. Thank you. So in 1774, Sam Adams was actually away in Philadelphia attending to business, probably rebel business. But Joseph Warren actually assumed Samuel Adams' kind of leadership role in Boston while he was away and became very involved in the raising of militia and arms and powder and procuring shit, which was really cool.
Procuring shit.
Procuring shit. He was the one that we'll see actually is kind of the mastermind to a lot of these plans. Okay. He's playing chess here. He's got it. He's a smart dude. So moving on to the next person we're talking about. Good old Paul Revere himself.
All right.
I feel like a lot of us know at least a little bit about Paul Revere because he is so famous. So let's get a little refresher. So he was born on Boston's North End on December 21st of 1734. And he was the son of Apollos Rivoire. He was French. And Deborah Hitchborn, who was a colonist. So Rivoire was born in France in 1702, actually moved over here. He immigrated and then changed his name to Paul Revere. So from Apollos Rivoire to Paul Revere.
Okay.
Sometime after immigrating, and he was a goldsmith. So Paul Revere was their third child, eldest surviving son, and was educated at the North Riding School and learned the art of gold and silversmithing in his father's shop. So I do have pictures.
A silver pot in his... Is that a pot?
Yeah, apparently he was really freaking good at it. And
I want to say, I feel like I've seen... Maybe it was at, like, the Charleston Museum where they have a huge revolutionary, like artifacts exhibit. I feel like I've seen, like, some of his silversmithing somewhere.
That's cool.
Not a lot, but like a couple pieces.
What a unique thing. It's like we know him from this midnight ride, and it's like we found his crafts.
He made spoons.
Look at this nice spoon that guy made when he wasn't saving the country. So in adulthood, so when Paul was 19, nearly finished with his apprenticeship, his father died. I don't know what from. That left Paul and his as the main income source for his family. 2 years later, in 1756, Revere was commissioned as the second lieutenant in the Massachusetts Artillery and sent to fight the French in upstate New York. So this is during the 7 Years' War. When he returned in the fall of 1756, he picked up the silversmithing again, and his silver shop was literally like the cornerstone of his professional life for more than 40 years. So even after the war, he still did it, among other things. We'll talk about that later as well. So he had lots of apprentices, journeymen. His shop produced pieces ranging from spoons to like full tea sets, and it was very well regarded in the area. And in August of 1757, Revere married Sarah Ornay. It's either Ornay or Orne. I don't know if I should pronounce the E or not. So they had 8 kids together.
Wow.
In 1773, the very beginning of all this revolution shit, Sarah died.
Oh, no.
Revere then married Rachel Walker, who he had 8 more children with.
Oh, my God. 16 kids?
16. I don't know if any of them passed because the 1700s, I don't know. But 16!
That's so many kids.
Oh, that's so stressful to think about. So, during the economic depression that followed that French and Indian War, this is what we're seeing him doing a few other professions because not everybody had the money for fancy silversmithing at the time. So he would produce illustrations for books and magazines, business cards, political cartoons, book plates, a songbook.
So he was artsy-fartsy.
He was artsy. He had an arty flair to him. And he actually practiced as a dentist between 1768 and 1775. Like, to the extent that his time and skills allowed. And
okay.
We're going to see his dentistry come up later.
Okay.
In a really weird way.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
Yes. So, he would, clean teeth, fasten in false teeth. He sold toothpaste. There is apparently a myth that he made George Washington's false teeth. There is no evidence that he made full sets of dentures or anything of that nature. So, cannot confirm or deny. There is just no evidence for it. But, I mean, documentation in the 1700s.
Yeah.
So, he was a member of the Masonic Lodge of St. Andrew, which is where he met Dr. Joseph Warren. And in the year before the Revolution, Paul would actually gather intelligence by watching the movements of British soldiers. So he was already spying.
Oh, wow.
And he was the courier for the Boston Committee of Correspondence and the Massachusetts Committee of Safety, which just makes me think of like the safety person at a factory. But
he's the OSHA. He's the OSHA guy.
He is OSHA. But he would ride express to like Philadelphia and other places to deliver messages.
You're doing a lot of hand movement.
Well, he was going all over the place. He was probably trying to get away from those 16 children.
Probably. He's like, what other job can I have to
Yeah, poor Rachel was like, come home. Oh my God. So, as a member of all these things, he actually took part in the meetings that planned the Boston Tea Party.
Oh, okay.
And he was the one that spread the word to New York and Philadelphia about the Boston Tea Party.
Neat.
Yes. So, pause on Paul Revere, going to William Dawes. So, he was born in April 6th of 1745. And he is William Dawes Jr., by the way. He was part of the fourth generation of his family to live in these colonies. So His family is well established. Probably one of the first families to come over when they were colonizing. Definitely not saying it was a good thing, but one of the first. And he learned the tanning trade and joined the militia unit in Boston in 1764. So we're seeing a pattern here. We're all seeing they're all part of these groups and they all kind of knew each other already. So he became, y'all, these names, he became an elected member of the Ancient and Honorable Artillery Company of Massachusetts.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Fancy.
Ancient and honorable. Now I'm thinking of Indiana Jones.
Like, it only had been being colonized for like 100 years at this point. I don't know if ancient is the proper term here.
They were probably all like drunk because they didn't drink regular water. And they were like, what's a cool ass name for this artillery company? The Ancient and Honorable. Hell yeah.
Ancient Honorable Order of Artillery?
Ancient and Honorable Artillery Company of Massachusetts.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Go Kings. Go Kings. Be ancient and honorable.
Yeah. Can I be ancient and honorable? That's how my body feels. Like a crumbling temple. Okay, so Dawes married Mehitable May? Mehitable. 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 Like me hit able. That's how it's spelled.
Mehitable. I don't know.
Mehitabla. Miss May. He married Miss May on May the 3rd of 1768, and they had 6 kids. These dudes just be fucking. I mean,
please don't tell me she also died in 1773.
I have no accounts
okay.
of her dying. I don't know when she died.
Okay.
No one said. So, Dawes joined the Sons of Liberty, which pretty much everyone we've already talked about is also a part of. And dude is just fucking about. I'm not gonna lie. He stole cannons that were guarded by British men. And he may have been instrumental in taking some of Boston's cannons to Concord during the winter of 1775.
Oh, wow.
So he was kind of known for his antics. He spent a lot of nights sneaking in and out of the city without being stopped because at this time, because of the rebels just causing a ruckus, the British had implemented a, what's the word?
Like curfew?
Yes, curfew. So you couldn't be out after dark. So Dawes had just gotten really good at sneaking in and out of the city. He would disguise himself as like a peddler or a drunk. He smuggled gold coins disguised as buttons that he would sew into his coats. And he would befriend any British guard that seemed amicable, that seemed like he could, you know, kind of get in there and become friendly with. And this later would come in handy. But he was just out there fucking about, just being like, I'm just gonna act like a drunk dude and see how far I can get. Right?
He looks mischievous hilarious in his painting.
He does.
He's got like he looks like he's about to crack a joke in his painting.
Like,
he also looks familiar. Like, he looks like someone I know. I don't know who it is, but he looks like, I feel like I've seen this person in real life before, like his doppelganger.
He seems like the kind of guy that joined the rebels because it just sounded like a fun time.
Yes.
He's like, yeah, you guys are having a blast. And they're like, what are you talking about? And he's like, hold on, let me put the disguise on. I got it. We're good. So Warren would also send him to carry messages as well. Obviously, he was really good at getting in and out of the town. So why wouldn't Warren send him? The last person I don't have a lot on. Mm-hmm. We will not have a lot of information on him. He is one of those where a lot of the finer details have been just lost to time. But it's very important to talk about him because he is never spoken about. So, Samuel Prescott. He was born August 19th of 1751 in Concord. They say Concord. I want to say Concord. Mm-hmm. But I think
do too.
The Massachusetts people say Concord. I don't know. I might go back and forth. So, his grandfather and father both lived in the area, and they were both physicians. So when he was old enough, Prescott also became a doctor. So he was a Dr. Samuel Prescott. Mm-hmm. And he was referred to as, by Paul Revere's account of the Midnight Ride, in like the 1790s, Paul Revere made like this account. Paul Revere referred to him as a high son of liberty. So, context clues, he was more than likely also a son of part of the Sons of Liberty. Mm-hmm. And that is most likely where he knew Paul Revere and William Dawes. Other than that, I don't really know a whole lot about him. I know he wasn't married. I know he did not have any children. But that does come up later. But that's all we know about this guy.
Okay.
So, let's bring it back to where we left off as far as the tensions between the British and the colonies. So, we have a shit ton of redcoats in the colonies, and we have word. Dr. Warren gets word that the British are going to be, this is where you're going to want to see the map.
Okay.
Y'all, I will post a map. If you are not driving, please watch it. Like, follow along. It might help. So, down there's the Charles River. There's the Mystic River. I don't know what this one is down here. But there's Boston. Kind of like an island, kind of a vibe.
Yes.
Boston was also shaped different back then. They filled in shit, we have learned. So, yes. But you can see on this map, there's like Revere's house and there's the chapel. You see a little boat, whatchamadoodle here. You see green and you see blue. Okay, so Warren gets word that in a couple days, troops from Boston are going to march overnight all the way to Concord and take ammunition. At the same time, Hancock and Samuel Adams are up here in Lexington at that little house at the very tippy top. They are very high profile people at this point, and the crown pretty much has a price on their heads. So
I think John Hancock was like one of the leaders of the Continental Congress. Like he was, I don't think he was like the president of it or whatever, but he was like one of the top people in it.
Right. So what's really interesting, and I only found this in one source because I cannot stress enough how many little sources I read and got little, you know how it goes. You get little bits here and little bits there. One source said that this midnight riot actually wasn't, it was a repeat. Apparently 2 days prior, he had done the exact same route. I don't know if William Dawes had done the same route, but apparently at least Paul Revere had done the same route to warn that the regulars is what they actually called them, not the redcoat, not the British, because everybody was British. That'd be like Susie down the road is coming, like that. Yeah. So they called the redcoats regulars. So to warn that the regulars were planning on coming, but he didn't know when, but be at the ready. I don't know when they're going to come. So Joseph Warren devised this plan that Paul Revere, when the I'm going to say British for, I don't want to say regulars. It's kind of weird. So when the British would leave Boston, Paul Revere would, and tell me if you recognize any falsehoods from that poem. So Paul Revere would look with his eyeballs and see how the British were leaving. Paul Revere would tell the person in the chapel how they were leaving. So, what was it? 1 if by land and 2 if by sea. Mm-hmm. So, the person in the chapel who was informed by Paul Revere himself would put the lanterns up to tell Warren if it was by sea or by land and that they had started moving. And the plan was Dawes would actually get a head start because he had more to go because he is the green line. And then Revere would go out about 2 hours later from the opposite side so they could warn flanking towns on, because what this doesn't show is that the British actually kind of went in a straight, it kind of went in the middle until it got to, you know, that fork in the road.
So Dawes went, like, he left, like, south of Boston and went around up through Cambridge and then started going
towards
northwest
Lexington.
towards Lexington.
Yes.
And then Paul Revere went north,
Yes.
west, and kind of went north of Boston. And
Yes.
then the British went just like directly like northwest and just like kind of cut through Cambridge
Yes.
directly.
They cut through Cambridge directly. So Paul Revere actually had to get some friends to row him across the Charles River. And Dawes was able to take that isthmus, that land bridge from Boston all the way around. So that was the plan. That's exactly what happened.
Okay.
In the poem, you notice that it says that Paul Revere was already on the other side of the water and looked over and saw the two lanterns, and that the signal was for him, but the signal was actually from him to Warren and Dawes because he was the one watching.
Okay.
So that's a big, misconception right there.
Yeah.
Also, the fact that nobody else was with him. It literally could not have happened. He couldn't have.
Yeah, it's kind of, when we've learned about Paul Revere in school, no one else is really mentioned. It's like, oh, one if by land, two if by sea, he wrote and warned everyone about the British. And
Yes.
That's about the extent of what we learn in school.
Yeah. That's it. I didn't know there was a second person. I didn't know there was a third person.
Mm-hmm. I didn't either.
Which is, it's going to be mind-blowing. So,
okay.
So that's exactly how it happens. Dawes leaves around 9 o'clock, whereas Revere leaves around 11:30-ish. It's really interesting that all of his, Dawes, acting like a drunk or a peddler or whatever, actually got him out of the city because he waited. Someone he had befriended was on duty that night, and when he was letting other people, other soldiers through, he just kind of slipped in. And his friend didn't say anything and was gone. Yeah. So he put that legwork in.
He did. That's a lot of planning.
There's so much planning. So, okay. So about 9 o'clock on April the 18th, Dawes leaves the Boston Neck. It wasn't until 10 p.m. that the British troops actually started crossing the Charles River by boat. It took them almost 4 hours to get across.
Oh, wow.
And by then, so 10, 11, 12, 1, 2 a.m., they finally got across the river. By 11 p.m. on the 18th, Revere had crossed the river and arrived in Charlestown. By 11:30, he was in Medford. He was on a borrowed horse. And off they go. So
and he's hauling ass.
He's hauling ass. So another misconception is that he was just yelling in the streets.
The British are
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. He would run up to established people who were, on watch or whatever, or go up to certain households and say, hey, the regulars, they're coming. They're coming by sea. They're coming. And then ride off to the next house. That person would then inform someone else, and then those people would inform, and it kind of spider webbed out. Mm-hmm. So he was leaving just a trail of, he would tell one or two people in these towns, and then those people would tell one or two people and tell one or two people. And Dawes was doing the exact same thing, but on the other side. Mm-hmm. So, they're doing the same thing. So by 12:30, 12:45, on the 19th, they reach Lexington. They were fucking hauling the mail to reach it by then. So they did actually reach up somewhere either in Lexington or like right outside of Lexington. And then they rode together from that point on.
Okay.
And this is where they reach Samuel Adams and John Hancock, where they were staying, John Hancock. And apparently a sergeant who is guarding the house outside requested that he not make so much noise. And apparently Paul Revere said, noise? You'll have noise enough before long. The regulars are coming out. And I think that's where we get the regulars are coming. Yeah. The British are coming. Yeah. So apparently John Hancock was like, heard it was Paul Revere and was like, come in, Revere. We're not afraid of you. Like, okay.
What? Okay.
We know that. Okay. So they refreshed themselves. Dawes and Revere, got something to eat, got something to drink, probably rested the horses for a few minutes, but then they really needed to get back on the road. John and Samuel stayed at the house for just a little bit, I guess grabbing everything they could because they needed to flee.
Yeah.
So Prescott apparently was leaving Lexington, headed back to Concord after visiting a lady friend's house.
Ooh, okay.
And in the middle of the night, he was like, I gotta go home, babe.
Oh.
So he actually caught up with Paul Revere and William Dawes and was like, hey, bro, what's up? And they said, obviously, he's a trusted person, told them about the plans, and Prescott was like, I'll join you. I'll come with you. And they were like, cool, literally any help we can get would be freaking awesome.
Yeah.
So the three of them started riding together. Well, right outside of Lexington, they were stopped by 4 British officers, soldiers. And at around 1 in the morning, they were stopped. Paul Revere was captured. Dawes was able to escape, but he had to leave his horse behind because the horse was too tired. Fair. He ended up walking back to Lexington. And sources said, I saw a couple sources that said Prescott had to walk to Concord, where some sources said he was able to get away and rode his horse to Concord. I almost feel like it would make more sense if he still had his horse, because this source says that at 1:30 in the morning, Prescott made it to Concord. I think he still had his horse. Anyway, Paul Revere and William Dawes never finished the midnight ride.
Oh, wow.
Because Paul Revere was captured and was taken into custody and questioned and then later released. Mm-hmm. William Dawes was horseless, so he had to go back to Lexington. Prescott, dude that just got laid, was just happened to be there and was like, yeah, I'll help a guy out. And he was the one that reached Concord, sounded the alarms. He literally got there and was like, we're running out of time. Ring the fucking bells. Wake everyone up.
Yeah. Because, I mean, the at this point, the British are about to land in Cambridge area, wherever that is, right? They're about to land after crossing by sea.
Yes. Yes. So they are just now, which is crazy. Let's think about this timeline, guys. By the time that those 2 men made it all the way to Lexington, warning people as they went, all the way to Lexington, and further, the British were just now getting off the fucking boats back in Cambridge.
And looking at this map, it looks like the distance from Boston to Lexington is like 100 times the distance between Boston and Cambridge, like on water. Like
How bad was that water? I don't know. But about this time is when the British let Paul Revere go. They took his horse, though, which was rude.
Just taking horses.
I know. Stealing horses. So, at around 3:30, Paul Revere was actually able to help Adams and Hancock get out of town. So, he kind of personally escorted them out of town. Again, never making it to Concord. Just really hoping Prescott had it handled. So, at 5 a.m, the British regulars arrive in Lexington. It took them another 3 hours.
Wow.
To march to Lexington, which took Paul Revere and Dawes, an hour and a half?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. While making stops on the way. Insanity. So, by then, there had been some militia gathered from the calls, and they were gathered in the Lexington Green area. And this is where we see 70 militiamen face off against 700 redcoats. Now, this is what will be known as the shot heard around the world. So what happened was the militiamen were like, if we're going to fight and die, we're going to fight and die. Then they see how many British soldiers there were, and they were like, maybe we're going to sit this one out. They got us, right? Yeah. We're not any good to the rebel cause if we're dead, if we jump the gun. So they actually start walking away, and the British, for whatever reason, fired on men who were walking away.
That's awful.
8 militiamen died. 9 were wounded. But only 1 British soldier was wounded. Apparently, because Paul Revere had to go back to the house that Adams and Hancock were at, Revere actually heard this shot. Because again, it was like a one shot, everyone shoots kind of a situation. Yeah. So the shot heard around the world was that initial shot. By 7 a.m., another 2 hours later, obviously with time for that horrifying incident, they arrive in Concord, and they were only able to capture just like a few supplies, and they set fire to 3 cannons. And the militia did flee at this point. Which is incredible, because they were able to bury and hide all of their ammunition.
I mean, it was stockpiles.
Yes. Everything that the British had done up until this point was a moot point, because they got word and was able to get it all hidden.
I mean, they had plenty of time. They had 6
seriously.
hours to hide everything.
I'm pretty sure my son can put shoes on faster than they cross that fucking water. And that's saying something, because that's a fight every morning. So, by 9 a.m., now 3,000 militiamen had gathered in the Concord area. And the surrounding areas, all the way back to Boston. So, if you look on the map, oh no, maybe this one doesn't have it. Hold on. North Bridge map. Midnight Ride. Let me see if I can find one that has. This one actually shows the, I liked the illustrations on the other one and how easy it was to read. But this one actually shows the British route too.
Oh, I see.
So
okay.
Yep. So if you zoom in Concord on that top right area, they were trying to cross the North Bridge. Well, the militiamen actually, it kind of bottlenecked in that area, and they stood on the other side of the bridge and just wouldn't let them pass, and actually surrounded them. So they were surrounded on three sides, and these militiamen, or these British soldiers, were basically sitting ducks. And the redcoats decided they lost this one. There's no way. So they turn around and they flee. And they're like, we got to get back to Boston. But what they did was they retraced their steps. They're trying to get back as fast to Boston as fast as possible.
Yeah.
It took them all 6 hours to get home, being harassed and shot at by the militia the entire way back.
That's some PTSD right there.
That is like guerrilla warfare at its finest. That is fucking with someone's head at its finest.
I can't imagine like my adrenaline and like my survival instincts going at full capacity for 6 entire hours while I run for my life.
Yes. I remember hearing or reading somewhere that they were interviewing the people that survived. Over 250 British were killed or wounded on that 6-hour walk back.
Holy shit. That's
That's
out
more
of
than
700.
Yeah. And they were like interviewing the survivors, and they were just like popping up out of the fucking bushes. Because they had warned all the towns in between. All the towns were like 6 hours. They were like, this is hell.
Yeah.
And I think this really bolstered the Americans into thinking they could actually win this thing, because they're using tactics that were absolutely unheard of.
They definitely went against the traditional rules of engagement at this point.
Yes, war was not fought like this up until this point. It was you stand in a field and you shoot at each other, and now they're like, ooh, maybe we should have, I don't know, some coverage on us.
Let's hide behind a tree and sneak up on the person.
Yes.
Or enemy or whatever.
Yeah. So, all of this really was the kickstart of the American Revolution. It really lit a fire under the asses of the rebels to be like, we could actually do this.
Mm-hmm.
And we will not go any further into the war because there's no reason to. That was the midnight ride.
Okay.
Because by then it was the next day. That was by 9 a.m. that they had met at the bridge. So it took them the entirety of the next day, the 19th, to get back to Boston, if they made it back to Boston.
Yeah.
So after the ride, let's talk about what happened to these people. And then we'll be done.
All right.
So Prescott... I'm going to go ahead and get the most depressing one out of the way first.
Okay.
So, again, we still really don't know a whole lot about him. He may have been a doctor for the American troops, might have been stationed at Fort Ticonderoga. A lot of mights and maybes and possiblies.
Mm-hmm.
Very little. So very little information about him. So the woman he was courting, Lydia Mulliken, didn't hear back from Samuel after 1777.
Oh, wow.
And she did wait until after the end of the war before she actually allowed herself to be courted or engaged by someone else. So, according to one account, there was a man identified as Dr. Prescott who was captured by the British and was imprisoned in Halifax, Nova Scotia, who did die in 1777. So they're thinking that he died in prison.
Okay.
After being captured by the British. That is what we have of him. But thank you, Samuel Prescott. Because without you, this wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
Concord never would have gotten warned in time, and the ammunition never would have gotten hidden in time, and we might all still have British accents. I don't know.
Salute to Samuel Prescott.
Yes. The real patriot. Or what was it? A true patriot?
A true patriot, yeah.
A true patriot. So, Revere, I don't know, he just kind of went on doing shit. So, after like the outbreak of the tensions of the war, he kind of turned industrialist, and he constructed a powder mill to supply the colonies with powder, with arms.
Okay.
So, yeah, in 1776, he was put in command of the Boston Harbor's principal defense at Castle William. But he was a lieutenant colonel. It was kind of largely like his time there was kind of undistinguished. I don't really think a lot happened.
I mean, they're just kind of their production. Hopefully they wouldn't see a lot of action at a gunpowder factory. That would be dangerous.
Right. Yeah. But, he just kind of went about his life. He did set up a rolling mill for the manufacturing of sheet copper in Canton, Massachusetts. By all accounts, he lived a successful life. He lived to be like old for the 1700s. So like whatever, he went on. So Dawes, after he walked back to Lexington, he kept kind of a low profile. And a few days after the battle, he apparently, when he had to leave his horse, he like fell off. He lost his watch, and apparently after a couple days, he was like, I'm gonna go find my watch again. So he went back and found his watch. I'm like, what are you doing?
Chaos. He's just chaos.
Yeah. Couple months later, he did fight at Bunker Hill.
Oh, wow.
And started a business later on to supply the army, much like Revere did. And he died in 1799, long after the independence. So he lived well after to see independence. Okay. But I think it's really interesting that over the years, it's kind of become a joke that Dawes was like the forgotten person of the Midnight Ride, even though there were two forgotten people of the Midnight Ride. But in 1896, Helen F. Moore published a parody of Longfellow's famous poem about the historic night entitled The Midnight Ride of William Dawes. And let me read you one of the verses.
Okay.
'Tis all very well for the children to hear of the midnight ride of Paul Revere, but why should my name be quite forgot, who rode as boldly and well? God, what? Why should I ask? The reason is clear. My name is Dawes, and his is Revere.
I mean, that's cool, though.
Yeah.
And clearly, you can tell it's a direct parody of Longfellow's poem.
Yeah. And apparently, like, I think I read somewhere that there was was it South Park or Family Guy that they made a joke referring to like being a forgotten hero, and they called it like Dawes or whatever. So maybe he's not all the way forgotten. And then last, there's Warren. So this one's sad too. So he spent the next 6 weeks readying the militia for the battles to come. And he was elected second general in command of the Massachusetts forces by the Provincial Congress in 1775. So on the morning of June 17th, Warren learned that the British forces had landed in Charlestown, and he rode over to Breed's Hill, which was an American fortification at the time, to fight and help, keep that in American control. Unfortunately, he was killed in this battle. This gets really weird. So the British forces, actually, he quoted saying he died fairly young. He died in 1775. I think he was in his 30s. He said, quote, "My candle burns at both ends. It will not last the night, but my foes, and my friends, it gives a lovely light."
So he's like, I'm not long for this world, but by God, I'm gonna go out in a blaze of glory.
Yes. I'm gonna live bright. Also, the British forces did end up taking this American fortification, and placed Warren's body in a common mass grave like they used to do.
Yeah.
His remains were later identified by Paul Revere, who identified them by the false teeth that Paul himself had put in his mouth.
Wow.
So this was the first case of dental forensics.
That's insane.
Is that not weird?
That's crazy. Wow. Mind-blowing.
Yes. Yeah.
That's very cool in a very morbid way.
Yeah. And that's it.
Well, I learned so much, and thank you so much for telling us about Warren and Dawes and Prescott and making sure that their names continue on alongside Paul Revere.
Absolutely. The more I dug into this, because the speaker did speak about Dawes and Prescott as well. Not really a lot on Warren. She spoke about him like I should have known already, and I was like, maybe I should. So, so I threw him in there as well because he is a big person in this story. But let's shout their names from the rooftops. We should rewrite. Somebody should write a poem, not us. Somebody should write a poem about all of them.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not good at poetry.
An accurate one.
Yeah.
No.
Someone out there who's good at writing poetry, write a poem for all four of these men.
Yeah. Y'all get our skits, and that's the best we've got to offer.
And even then, it's like, sorry about this skit, y'all. This is... Well, thank you, Emily. You did a great job.
An hour 45. Wow.
I think a lot of that was before we started too.
Probably. All right. Well, we should get into socials for these lovely people.
Yes.
You can find us on Facebook,
Ill-Equipped History Podcast Group and Page,
Instagram
at Ill-Equipped History,
TikTok
at Ill-Equipped History,
Gmail,
ill-equippedhistory@gmail.com,
And Patreon.
Patreon.com/illequippedhistory. Please consider becoming a patron, and you get bonus episodes and stickers. And we just got a new sticker.
We did. I'm still need to send those to y'all. Sorry. Life is crazy.
It is very crazy.
We're gonna, like, when we get super big and popular, we're gonna have to, like, hire someone to send people stickers.
Oh, man. We're gonna hire someone to do our editing and someone to handle our merch. How exciting will that be?
Could someone handle my life? Could I have a personal assistant? Is that in the budget?
Not right now.
Because, oh my God. Okay, so if you're gonna write a poem about a historical event, please include all the important people in that historic event.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Make sure their names are known.
Yes. And you know what? Go court that lady. Because you never know what you might end up doing at midnight after.
You may turn the tide of the war before it even begins.
Yeah. You may end up riding alongside Paul Revere and William Dawes. Honestly, nowadays, you just kind of end up drunk in the passenger seat of your friend's car going through the Taco Bell drive-thru. But you know what? It's the same.
It's an identical situation.
Equally important.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.